Well, big day on Capitol Hill. Fireworks as FBI Director James Comey and NSA Director Mike Rogers testify under oath for the first time on alleged Russian meddling in the U.S. election, as well as President Trump's wiretapping claims. At times, it seemed like there were two hearings going on simultaneously. The left trying to tag the Trump team with some sort of collusion with Russia, and the GOP, rightly so, trying to get the name of the leaker who gave classified information, like the name of Michael Flynn, to the New York Times and Washington Post. Both sides seemed to land body blows, and it was very compelling TV. In fact, I was glued to the screen. I think we all might have been glued to the screen. But one of the big revelations, the FBI chief confirming to the House Intelligence Committee that his agency is investigating potential links between the Trump campaign and the Russian government.
I have been authorized by the Department of Justice to confirm that the FBI, as part of our counterintelligence mission, is investigating the Russian government's efforts to interfere in the 2016 presidential election. And that includes investigating the nature of any links between individuals associated with the Trump campaign and the Russian government, and whether there was any coordination between the campaign and Russia's efforts. As with any counterintelligence investigation, this will also include an assessment of whether any crimes were committed.
Comey also shot down Mr. Trump's charge that President Obama had wiretapped Trump Tower.
With respect to the president's tweets about alleged wiretapping directed at him by the prior administration, I have no information that supports those tweets, and we have looked carefully inside the FBI. The Department of Justice has asked me to share with you that the answer is the same for the Department of Justice and all its components.
And the White House responded to that.
He said that there is no information to support the allegations that the president made against President Obama
at this time.
So is the president prepared to withdraw that accusation and apologize to the president?
No, we started a hearing. It's still ongoing. And then, as Chairman Nunes mentioned, this is one in a series of hearings that will be happening. I think there's a lot of areas that still need to be covered. There's a lot of information that still needs to be discussed.
Yeah, and KG, just about 2 minutes prior to the show going live, John Roberts sent this email out. This is apparently a statement from Paul Manafort directly. It says, quote, "I had no role or involvement in the cyber attack on the DNC or the subsequent release of information gained from the attack, and I've never spoken with any Russian government officials or anyone who claimed to have been involved in the attack. The suggestion that I ever worked in concert with anyone to release hacked emails or sought to undermine the interest of the United States is false." He goes on to say very quickly, despite the constant scrutiny and innuendo, there are no facts or evidence supporting these allegations, nor will there be. I'm disappointed that anyone would give credence to the allegations made by individuals with political involvement in a blatant attempt to discredit me and the legitimacy of the election of Donald Trump.
Yeah, so this is pretty much in keeping with what we've been hearing coming out of the Oval, out of the White House, saying that the mainstream media and obviously the DNC before the election was held was trying to discredit President Trump, trying to continue to discredit him, and then suggesting that people that were advisors to him, and then also people that worked on his campaign had some kind of collusion with Russia to make sure that the DNC and the candidacy of Hillary Clinton was undermined at the expense, and then, of course, promoting and putting forward Donald Trump as the candidate and ultimately the president. So far, we've seen absolutely no evidence to support those claims, despite the fact that they had this ongoing investigation. I think it's smart of Paul Manafort to release a statement to very much be on the offense and say, here's what I'm doing, here's what they've accused me of, and put out a clear statement of fact to try to quiet the storm down.
Dana, like I said in that intro, it seemed like there were two hearings going on at once. The left doing very well. They're attacking, these allegations of wiretaps and the collusion that, for the first time ever, we heard James Comey say, yes, there's an ongoing investigation of the ties between the Trump campaign, Trump administration, and Russia.
Yeah, there's a lot going on today. One is that, but I believe that James Comey, the FBI director, they actually didn't say the name Paul Manafort. That actually didn't come up until the White House press secretary's briefing today, when he described former hangers-on who didn't really have a lot of influence. Like that, so and I sort of see Paul Manafort, he's responding to the FBI, but I think also he's responding to the fact that the White House press secretary is the one who brought his name up. I think that they could have diffused the bomb a couple of different ways today, so meaning the bombshell. One, I think that when you find out that there's no wiretapping evidence, that one of the things you could say was, I am so glad that no one was wiretapping me. Now we can move on and focus on other things. Instead, they said that there's no evidence of the collusion between Russia and the Trump campaign. They said that should be put to bed, that there's no evidence, moving on. But that at the same time, the wiretapping claim, of which they say there is no evidence, that should continue to be investigated. So just ensuring that this story will continue to move on. The other thing the White House could have said, and I think that they probably will going into tomorrow's papers, is that the FBI director also confirmed again that there was no Russian actual impact on the electoral outcome. And the third thing I think they could have said was, if the FBI says that they're investigating, I encourage anybody who worked on my campaign to fully cooperate. And we are moving on, focusing on other things.
Greg, how is it possible? And Trey Gowdy's questioning was phenomenal. It was pointed. He went right at James Comey. And he was trying to get at who leaked the information about Michael Flynn to the Washington Post and New York Times. And Comey kept saying, and Rogers kept saying, we can't tell you. We're not allowed to tell you. But how is it possible that Flynn was being investigated, yet there was no surveillance of Trump Tower?
I don't know. That's an excellent question, and that's why they're having an investigation. What you're seeing are you're seeing two sides with glaring clarity. One believes in talking about the collusion, the other one about the leaks. The leaks. It's a mirror battle. It's a mirror battle, and in my view, they cancel each other out. When I'm watching this, I'm just watching. It was like, to me, it was like watching a really dull ping pong game. And the thing is, what I don't understand is, you could. Schiff was arguing that if there's a change in relations with Russia, that is proof. But if you look, it could be, you could say the exact opposite. You could say if there's no change, there's proof, because that's to hide the fact that, like, if you just did a dirty deal, are you then going to just immediately change your behavior? You could, so if you can argue that a change in behavior or not a change in behavior is proof, then you really don't have an argument, because it can go either way. And remember, if you are colluding with a foreign government, would you actually brag about it? I mean, that's kind of genius. Well, I mean, that would be like walking into TSA and bragging about having contraband. You don't do that unless you are so brilliant. Trump is so brilliant that he knew that while he was having, Russia help him win an election, he was boasting about it.
But remember, I do think one of the key words that the FBI director said was that you can be a part of an investigation. There might have been someone who was unwittingly helping the Russians, so they don't even know it. So the investigation is more about what Russia was trying to do rather than possibly than what other people were doing. That word unwitting was very key.
Let me bring Juan in.
I'm always unwitting.
Were you shocked to hear FBI Director Comey saying yes, to acknowledge the fact that there is an investigation ongoing, not able to talk about it one bit? But then one asks, is there an investigation anyone in any of the other campaigns, in the Clinton campaign, any of the 17 or so campaigns that were going on, saying, I can't answer that question? Then why was he able to answer the question about the Trump campaign?
Are you kidding me?
Because he asked the Justice Department for permission.
What is going on here? This is like, what's going on at this table, Gregory?
Yes.
I know you like it when I say
yes,
this table.
Juan.
It really constitutes, again, trying to, distract people from the news of the day. The news of the day is that the FBI director, Jim Comey, much hated by the left for his involvement and finger-putting on the scales of the 2016 campaign, came out today and said the president's a liar. That's what the FBI director of the United States said about the president of the United States.
You're talking about the tweet
today.
You're talking about
the tweet. We're talking about the tweet where President Trump said, "Oh, I was wiretapped."
Do you think this is a revelation?
The CIA, the FBI, the National Security Agency, we go on and on. Nobody is backing up Trump. Republicans are running from Trump.
But Juan, do you honestly think that that's a revelation, that there was no evidence behind one of Trump's tweets? America has gotten used to those tweets.
That's fine, Greg, but you know what? He's the president of the United States.
But
This is unprecedented. This is new territory.
And those on the left and even the intel community is taking that tweet very, very literally.
Oh,
in other words, did President Obama actually physically wiretapped Trump?
It extends to surveillance. I'm telling you, everybody's saying there was no surveillance of Trump.
Then, how do we have a transcript of Michael Flynn's conversation with the Russians?
About this. They were looking at the Russian ambassador, Kislyak, and guess what? he was talking to Michael Flynn.
Where?
And I don't know where,
Well,
but that doesn't matter.
Some of it had to be at Trump Tower.
No, it doesn't.
Oh, come on.
Of course not. You're just looking for an excuse. You're trying to
really
excuse Donald Trump. Listen,
really
here's the other thing that came out today. You're talking about Roger Stone, Paul Manafort, Carter Page, Mike Flynn, Jeff Sessions, Jared Kushner. How many people in the Trump circle do you have to have dealing with the Russians before you say, you know, I'm a Republican, but I think something's wrong here?
Did you hear the question? I can't remember who asked the question. It was very poignant. It said, how long have the Russians been trying to influence American elections? He asked both the NSA director and the FBI director, and both of them turned and said, for decades.
Yeah, but
so it's been going on, as Dana aptly points out. Even though they've tried to, they didn't interfere. They didn't change the outcome of anything.
They certainly did change
because they
the
didn't
outcome.
have an unwitting player to help them. I mean, maybe that is one of the reasons. And
maybe it's a ghost of Ted Kennedy. It's a ghost of Ted Kennedy. Remember, he tried to block Reagan by going to the KGB.
We're so glad you cleared this up.
Well, I'm pointing out the hypocrisy. Finally, the left cares about the Russians. Back during the Cold War, they didn't give a damn.
And back when Romney was running.
Yes, I did.
I think everybody didn't like the Russians, you know.
No.
World
if you
War
remember
II
the
wasn't divided between
the left loves
Democrats.
So if for whatever triggered this investigation of Flynn was it contact with the Russians, and it's been going on for decades, I got to assume that other campaigns were involved with the Russians. And why didn't that trigger some sort of investigation into where Bill Clinton was? He was all over the world talking to people who, frankly, aren't our friends. Where's the investigation of the Clinton campaign?
Maybe it's off in the weeds with you, because you are lost on this story. You are trying to divert America's attention from the news of the day and from the reality of what's going on.
How is dealing with the Russians any worse than dealing with some Middle Eastern countries that absolutely hate us? How is that possible? Where he gave speeches. He was making money giving speeches to these countries. He was dealing with... No, Bill Clinton was dealing with this.
Because I think Flynn is the one who's been making money from the Russians, from the Turkish.
Information. Does anybody care about that? The fact of the matter that they revealed
Are you kidding? Are there not leaks in Washington? Leaks?
No, but okay, but Juan, you can't. Okay, let's replace the Russians with ISIS.
Okay.
Just so that everybody is clear about how serious both charges are.
Yeah.
If ISIS was colluding in our elections, we'd be freaking out at Fox. And also, if we were leaking information between Americans talking to ISIS, we'd be freaking out. So we have to remind ourselves that these are serious things, and to try to push away the political battles and say both are equally bad and should be investigated.
Yeah, I agree with you, but I don't get your point about ISIS.
I'm saying that helps clarify people. So it's as an example. That way we all know that ISIS is evil.
I would say that the distinguishing factor here is the cyber intrusion. That is apart from what Eric was saying, oh, Russians have always been after us, but it's the fact that they were able to use the cyber intrusion so effectively that all of our intelligence agencies back in January confirmed Russians interfered in this campaign to the benefit, and they intended to help
right for the first part.
Trump.
No, you were right. In the first part,
right
that
all
they may
along
have gotten access, but they testified today, Juan, there was no interference. There's no change.
No interference?
Yes. Did it change any votes?
No. You're talking about something else. And I think they did change votes. They changed votes because they made it out that somehow Hillary was dishonest.
Dana, final thought?
No, I'm good.
Okay, we'll leave it right there. Come